Oswald. And this Russo fella said that when he was at the party, I guess he was invited by a Clem Bertrand, who he identified in the room as a Clay Shaw, who was this socialite guy who would, a businessman and supposedly a right-wing or associated with the right-wing folks. So these guys were at the party, and apparently all of them were discussing killing President Kennedy. At this time, they knew it was announced that he was coming to Dallas, so they would be able to, they were trying to figure out the plan. The Russo character says that he heard them discuss how they were going to do it, and even the triangulation of Crossfire, saying, which it would help it out. Now, was the Clay Shaw or Clem Bertrand and David Ferry and this Lee Harvey Oswald or Leon Oswald, were they all working together for the same purpose? Or was it possible that all this is true, as well as the mafia? All these things were connected. Is it possible? I think it is. Everything is a possibility, right? So everyone could have been working together. Lee Harvey Oswald could have been the guy coordinating from Russia, coordinating the mafia, coordinating. Is he that smart, though? I mean, all these things would have to make that happen. Some say he wasn't. He was just a mediocre guy. However, he was very arrogant. He was thought very highly of himself. That's another possibility. Another theory is, was it possible that Lyndon Baines Johnson, along with some Texas oil guys, were they behind it to give LBJ the presidency and to move forward on the things that they wanted to do? Because it's possible that LBJ came to Kennedy and said, hey, I have a few ideas for this, this, and this. And Kennedy shot him down, said, no, we're moving forward on the other. So were they so frustrated that they put a plot together to assassinate Kennedy? Another assassination conspiracy is that the CIA was involved. A fellow by the name of Gayton Fonzie, I hope I'm saying that right, was a staff investigator for the House Select Committee on Assassinations. He wrote, and all these folks write books. Are they out to get money, create conspiracy? Because, listen, I'm sitting here doing a podcast on it. I'm not trying to make any money off of it, but there are people out there who do. Anyway, some people say that David Atlee Phillips, this Fonzie guy, thinks that David Atlee Phillips, who was the head of the CIA's Western Hemisphere, was part of the assassination conspiracy. Mr. Fonzie interviewed a couple of different folks, one of them being Arlen Specter. He was the assistant counsel for the Warren Commission. U.S. News and World Report asked Arlen Specter if he was, in fact, the chief investigator of the facts for the Warren Report. And Arlen Specter's response was, I quote, I would not describe my role at all beyond what appears in the work of the Warren Commission, end quote. So, he was a major player for the Warren Commission. And when this Fonzie fella asked him regarding the location of the wound in Kennedy's back, hey, can you describe that a little bit? He said, I don't really remember. Well, he was the guy handling all the facts. He was a lawyer, and he don't remember a specific detail like that. So it's possible that there was a cover-up within the government, within the Warren Commission. Is it possible, along with that the government knew there was a conspiracy, but in order to maintain control of the government, let's say, that they hid some of it? Because if the word got out that there was, shoddy work being done, protection, especially protection of the president, and I'm not saying anything negative, it's very possible that everything was done to the T and to the letter, but when you look back on some of the photos, there are, the motorcade's a couple cars deep. There was President Kennedy's motorcade with hardly any Secret Service agents around it. One had to run up to it when he got shot. And the motorcade behind him, if there's certain pictures that'll show, there's a ton of Secret Service agents on top of that. There's windows open. I mean, none of this stuff happens now. I mean, as much as some people dislike the President Trump now, he's well protected, very well protected. President Obama, for that matter, he was very well protected. And they are today. The former presidents are. They still are. Some people could be angry. Thank God we haven't had some crazy person since Kennedy. Well, I guess that's wrong. We had several people, crazy people, but no one actually made it. No one succeeded. Thank God, no one succeeded. So this just brings us to another theory. Some people believe that, in fact, the Secret Service were part of the JFK assassination. There was a book written by a fellow named David Lifton. It was called Best Evidence. He claims that members of the Secret Service were involved in the killing of Kennedy. He also claims that, like I just explained, that they provided a good opportunity for somebody to shoot him. Were they working with someone? Is that why the route was changed? I don't know if I've mentioned that, but some people say that the route was changed. Some people talk about what I just talked about, that there was no really any Secret Service agents around the president at the time. They were all in the back and standing. There were a couple standing up on the grassy knoll and whatnot. Did they hear the shot? And if some of you history buffs remember, Dallas, when the president was assassinated, they took him to Parkland Hospital. The Dallas coroner should have done an autopsy there. The Secret Service, like with guns drawn, took President Kennedy's body, loaded it up on Air Force One, and back to D.C. they went. They shouldn't have done that. They totally went against Texas law. He was killed in Dallas, and they should have ran the autopsy. Was it possible they took the body in order to make alterations to it, to make it look the way they needed it to look? Think about that. It's interesting when you think about all these things. All right. On December 9th, 1958, the John Birch Society was formed. Some people believe that the John Birch Society had a hand in the assassination of John F. Kennedy. There are some who tell a story about Harry Dean, who was an undercover FBI agent at the time. He infiltrated the John Birch Society in approximately 1962 and said that they had hired two gunmen to kill President John F. Kennedy. So that's an interesting one. Being that Kennedy's a Democrat, John Birch Society is a conservative group, possibly, I don't know. And the last but not least conspiracy theory of John F. Kennedy that we'll discuss today, and I want you guys to, look all this stuff up. If you're interested, check it out. It's interesting to me, I think. But anyway, the three hobos that are pictured, they were arrested in the train yard near Dealey Plaza. They call them hobos. Maybe they were hobo-looking at the time, but some of them had nice shoes and different things. They were arrested in the train yard in Dealey Plaza. They were arrested. These three men were arrested, taken to the police station, and no arrest records are available for these three guys. Some folks even think that those three tramps, some people believe that after they were arrested, they weren't found again. Some people believe that they were found again, that in fact it was Thomas Valley or Frank Sturgis or E. Howard Hunt or Fred Chrisman. And you might remember Frank Sturgis from Watergate. So were these men always anti-Democrats? Were they a part of the assassination? Were they released because there was other connections and other folks knew that they were going to be there? And were they arrested for a possible escape? I don't know. Those are all questions we ask. The conspiracy behind JFK is there's a lot that goes into all of this. There's a lot that we talk about. There's a lot that's interesting to talk about. And the one thing that I think possibly happened, and this is just my opinion, I think that Oswald did it alone. But I think he had help. It's very possible, and sometimes I'll bounce back and forth and say, yeah, maybe there was a second gunman. I don't know. But I think he had help. I think he took the shots, but I think he had help. Who do I think it was? I don't know. I really don't. I think a lot of this goes into play. You know, some of these are just far-fetched. Some of these conspiracy theories, like J. Edgar Hoover, and I think it's kind of far-fetched. He seemed like a straight shooter, I guess, through the books and whatnot. Kind of a weird dude, but I don't know. I don't think he would have risked his career in order to kill the president. Some of the conspiracies are far-fetched. But that's all the time I have today. Listen for us Wednesday. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you didn't enjoy this episode, I kind of mixed it up. The first one was kind of structured. The first episode I wrote out. I wanted it to be a cheap ripoff of This American Life or something like that. And this one's just kind of the free-flowing episode, kind of part one, part two. You have the history behind it. We wanted that to be structured, and the conspiracy theory, I wanted to kind of just flow with it and go with it. Thank you to the book I picked up that a lot of these conspiracies came out of that we talked about today. It was called Who Really Killed JFK and Why? It was written by Therlee Gipson. You can check that book out. I actually picked it up when I was at Daily Plaza, and picked it up from Mr. Gipson himself. He was out there selling it. But I do know these theories to be what people have said. So I'll leave you with a few clips of being in Dealey Plaza, and I'll leave you with a few reminders about this tragic incident in November 22nd, 1963, where President John F. Kennedy was assassinated, and the world changed forever. All right, I am actually standing just off the grassy knoll inside the parking lot, getting ready to get in my car. This was a tremendous experience, an unfortunate event, but a tremendous experience to come to one of the most historical sites that our country has ever known. I'm staring actually right now at the window where Lee Harvey Oswald was set up in his sniper's nest, and by the grassy knoll where just past the fence where the conspiracy theorists say that the second gunman was located. Now I'm heading back in the car, and man, this is cool.
There has been an attempt, as perhaps you know now, on the life of President Kennedy. He was wounded in an automobile driving from Dallas Airport into downtown Dallas, along with Governor Connolly of Texas. They've been taken to Parkland Hospital there, where their condition is as yet unknown. We have not been told their condition. At Dallas, in the downtown hotel room, a group had been gathered to hear President Kennedy when he was waiting his arrival. Let's switch down there now, where Eddie Barker of KRLD is on the air.
I didn't shoot anybody, sir. I haven't been told what I'm here for. You have a lawyer? No, sir, I don't. These police officers have not allowed me to have any. I don't know what this is all about. No, sir, I didn't. People keep asking me that. Sir? You shoot the president? I work in that building. Were you in the building at the time? Naturally, if I work in that building, yes, sir. Back up, man. Did you shoot the president? No, they're taking me in because of the fact